to the other side, we have our global citizen, our partner Sanjay Nath. He's our voice to the other side of the world. And what we'd like to request is Akash Gupta from GreyOrange and Aniruddha Sharma from Carbon Clean Solutions. We have the next discussion here, world-class innovations, solving global problems. Both of them Fund 1 founders, been at it for the last 10 years, building and competing in the global arena. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Sarita. This is a really tough act to follow. If you ask me, I would love to watch that video again. I've watched it 4 times, and it's absolutely amazing. But just getting into it, first of all, welcome everybody to Blume Day. This is a very special panel on around a special theme. So welcome Akash. Akash is the founder and CEO of GreyOrange, and Aniruddha is the founder and CEO of Carbon Clean. Just to kick it off, some interesting parallel threads of context. Both Fund 1 companies, both deep tech innovations built in India for the world, and both started straight out of campus. Bits Pilani in Akash's case and IIT Kharagpur in Aniruddha's case. So it'll be great if you all could, Aniruddha, we'll start with you. Maybe if you could just summarize the world-class innovation that you're building from here, for India today, describe your mission, purpose, and also recount that first, going back 10 years, to what was that first moment when you realized that this had to be a global stage and you had to be kind of in a cross-border environment, building from India for the world. So we'll start off with you.
Thank you, Sanjay, and I think it's great to be here. Thanks for the whole Blume team, and my heartfelt big thanks to Mr. Nath is sitting there. I still remember the first investment actually in our company came from Mr. Nath and Mrs. Nath's account when Blume was not even formed. To answer your question, Carbon Clean is revolutionizing industrial decarbonization. We are building the 4th pillar of $2 trillion decarbonization industry. We are a company focused on decarbonizing large-scale power plants, chemical plants, steel plants, refineries, oil and gas facilities. We take the carbon dioxide from the smokestack of these polluters and we convert it into a chemical that they can then sell into the market. Today we are present in 12 countries. We have 49 operating sites all over the world. We have delivered 2 million tons of CO2 captured to date. And we are now looking towards capturing and abating about 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide over a period of the next 10 years. To answer your question on what was that trigger, I think that trigger for us was 2nd April 2012 when Karthik introduced me to a scout from the British government who was actually in India looking for interesting companies. And I met this guy and he said, in the UK we are just about to launch a large funding competition for companies interested in this space and we would love for you to be there. And I'd never been to the UK, and people on my board were like, it was literally a firing squad. What, for this opportunity, you don't want to go to the UK? And next day I was there. And in 15 days, we got £4 million, $6 million grant from the British government. I think that was a trigger for us that made me realize that clean tech companies are actually global from day one. They can't be local.
Akash, your GreyOrange journey started from Gurgaon, so over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Blume team, for having me here. I think from GreyOrange perspective, our journey started with robotic automation in warehouse. We've evolved it to a large part of, I would say, consumer to manufacturer transactions and making them more efficient across retail, warehouses, and large part of supply chain journey. And I think for us, the thought process of going global was, I would say, fairly clear from early days. Of course, I think the journey we took was different from normally journeys people take from, kind of starting with US and then start building all across. I think we started with Southeast Asia and, Japan and Europe and then US. But I think when you start getting exposed to the scale, I was talking to Sanjay, I think the art of possible becomes very, very different. You would imagine that you would do like 1,000 robotic robots in a year, and then you are kind of looking at warehouse that can consume 1,000 robots in one single warehouse, right? I think so the scale goes to a very, very different level. And today, we run multiple warehouses with 500, 600,000 robots in a single warehouse. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, when you start looking at I would say global leaders, likes of H&M or Walmart or XPO, I think that gets you very clear that there's the art of possible is much, much larger than you can imagine.
Very interesting. I mean, as Blume being a VC, we're supposed to take crazy risks. I mean, we are VCs, and you're trying to back entrepreneurs, and it's an interesting moniker, the art of possible, quantified at large scale. Just thinking back about the one or two things to get right. This has been a decade-long journey, and we've got young founders in the audience who are in your shoes. I mean, young, seasoned founders. Aves at Pixel, Kaushik at Ethereal, and many, many here. What are those one or two things to get right from your journey that if you had to do it again, you would accelerate faster? Akash, in your case, you have H&M, Zara partnerships. Aniruddha, you've got Chevron. You've attracted them to become a strategic customer. Would love to hear, like, what are those one or two things to absolutely get right?
Sure. So I think, as we or you were thinking as going global, I think the first market to choose, outside your local market is important. I think, you normally see a lot of opportunities in a bunch of countries and likes of that. Getting the focus right, getting the first market right, understanding what market is good for, adoption and likes of that. I think that's important. And for us, I think, we did a couple of mistakes before we finally landed in US, which was the right adoption market. And then having the first anchor customer, right, in that first market, for us, it was, XPO, now called GXO, who kind of gave us the right platform to, build in US. And again, we partnered to get a lot of logos like Apple and ANF, for them, together with us. So getting the anchor customer right and getting the first market right is important. And third thing I think worth mentioning here is getting the first set of team right in that overseas market. There's always this confusion of, what should be the balance? Should we have all the people off that market? Or, but at the end of the day, what we have realized is that you really got to have a very balanced team between, your original team and the overseas team to kind of come together so that the culture, gets driven rightly and you have local market presence as well. So I think those three things are pretty much the most important ones.
That's great. Aniruddha, in your case, after this journey started in, moved to London, I remember Karthik and I coming and seeing you in the Imperial College of London, where your lab was. From there to the Chevron sort of milestone, what would you have accelerated? What would you have done differently? Everything comes at sort of at a cost or of time. But what were one or two things to get right that if you do it again, you would have done differently? Just thoughts.
So there's quite a few things I would have probably done differently. But I think maybe there are two things that I would probably do differently. One is I would actually take a little bit more risk. I think first-time founders are actually afraid of failing, but failing fast is so important. You actually save so much time, resource, money that actually is going in. So I think I would have failed fast if I could. And the second thing, which I think is quite personal, is I would have probably tried to become a much more efficient and better manager, people manager, a bit earlier on in my life. I think the transition from a founder to a founder CEO to CEO of a company that's running in 12 countries and is trying to churn out product that's touching. Today, to give you an example, my teams are actually working in 6 countries, commissioning plant of tens of millions of dollars, actually at client sites worth $4 billion. I'm actually sitting here. So I think I would have probably worked a little bit harder to develop myself as a people manager. Obviously, we've always hired best people. We've cared about the culture, but I think it's the transition from founder to a CEO, a seasoned CEO, is actually very hard, and I would have probably worked on it a little bit earlier on.
So that's great. Wonderful that you're talking so transparently about the mistakes and learnings. Now, coming back to that word, crazy scale and ambition. in the SaaS world, we talk about 100 million ARR as being a holy grail in one sense. And I know both of you have a respectively, bold vision. Just share a bit about how you take that out of the possible, make it like what vision Akash and Aniruddha are we talking about in the next, let's say, 5 years respectively, and how do you all make that happen? I know you talked about warehouses there. Just a couple of warehouses could yield a couple of $100 million. So, how big can this be, and what's one thing to get right?
Sure. So I think, from size and scale perspective, I think 100 million ARR was dream when we started, 10 years back. But I think, when we look at the market today, just a data point, Amazon have been, kind of leading, the robotic automation within their supply chain. They grew from 300,000 bots in their network to 700,000 bots in their network in 2 years, right? And the whole world consumed lesser than 100,000 bots, right? So I think, the scale at which, automation as well as retail can go to, I think, $1 billion is not impossible, right? And especially I think the industry like robotic automation and retail automation, I think it's still so, so much in early days. People are just, dipping their toes in the water, and most of our customers, where we have got hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, are still at 4-5% of adoption of our technology in the warehouses. So absolutely, I think building needs patience, but I would say aiming $1 billion ARR is definitely not out of bounds.
Very interesting. I'm really happy that in this space, you have to back young founders because you all are still building and you all still look young after 10 years. Aniruddha, in Carbon Clean Solutions, to use the pun, what are your thoughts on capturing that, the carbon capture? How do you think about it? Is sizing the overall TAM, capturing the percentage? What is the key thought that would yield a really large outcome?
So I think for us, we are building an energy transition company. And we want to work on decarbonizing 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions. To give you an idea, world today emits about 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions. So what we are targeting is actually a very small percentage. But to give you a holistic perspective, today, all over the world, all the companies taken together capture about 50 million tons of carbon dioxide. So when Carbon Clean says we'll capture 1 billion tons, we'll actually deliver 20 times the existing installed capacity as we go forward. I think for us, it's very important to actually become a total energy decarbonization company, a company that provides a full value chain. Today, we are a technology company. We have 86 patents all over the world. We are a product company. But I think I want to transition us as a Carbon Clean as a company to a full value chain company. A good example of a full value chain company is actually Tesla. Tesla is not an EV company. It's actually an energy transition company. They do everything right end to end. I think I'll probably like to build Carbon Clean towards the same direction as well.
Very nice. Just the last words from both of you. Today, you're seeing a lot of deep tech companies, startups coming out from IIT Madras, many of the knowledge parks and the research parks. Do you feel India is there? What is needed? What are one or two things needed to spur that? More gray oranges, more Carbon Cleans, pixels, ethereals coming out. What do you feel the ecosystem in general, and what do we need to do to get many more out?
Yeah, so I think the first I would say is still exposure. I think I would pretty much ask any founder to kind of see and talk to, at least in B2 space where GreyOrange works, talk to the leading companies and understand what their problems are. I think just even understanding what are the challenges of the Fortune 100 companies, I think that pretty much is the starting point, and that already starts giving you thoughts on, okay, yes, if this is what the Fortune 100 companies are kind of struggling with, and that kind of gets you. And again, I think a lot of times when you are building deep tech, you feel that technology is going to be the biggest challenge, and 5 years down the line, you start feeling that tech was the easiest part, right? How do you kind of scale it up? How do you get to the point where people understand the value of that tech and convert those tech into real dollars. I think those are some of the very important aspects to look at. But I would still say at the top is understanding what Fortune 100 companies are looking at from B2B space, and then kind of getting inspired. I think would definitely be top of my list.
Very nice. Exposure and other very interesting things. Aniruddha, last word.
I think what you're doing, what Karthik is doing, what the Blume team is doing, I think this is exactly what's required. We need platform approach. If you look at any developed economy where there is access to capital, access to knowledge, and new companies are building up, I think this is exactly the people in this room. You have so much knowledge, you have so much capability, so much intellectual property, so much desire and drive. I think this is exactly what's required to build more knowledge and IP-intensive companies coming out of India.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Akash and Aniruddha. It's very interesting to listen to two young engineers building for the world and talking about the art of making it possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay.